Hey guys, welcome back to week 13 of our series, Restored. I'm so glad you're still with us, and I really pray that God's growing you and you're experiencing all the joy of what it's like to really live life reconnected with God. I want to share with you some things today about the Father again, but this time let's talk about Him as a dad. You know, in my house, when my kids are messing around with me, they'll come and say, "Father, may I have something from the refrigerator?" And they'll, call me Father like that. And although I am Father, using the term Father sounds a little stiff and formal, doesn't it? My kids call me Dad. And we all, when we're close with our fathers, that's kind of the nickname in the English language we use when we want to describe an intimate, rich kind of relationship with the one that we would call Father. My introduction to this came when I was reading through Romans, and we looked at Romans 8:15 last week, and we talked about how our spirit that's in us right now cries out, Abba, Father. And Abba would be in the Hebrew, we say daddy in the English language because a newborn baby says dada, dada. And I would, with all 6 of my kids, I tried to make sure they said dada before they said mama. And it was fun, a fun way to mess around. But it's an easy word to say. And it's the first words that come off the lips of a baby when they're looking at the one who's their father. And it's this rich, I'll never forget the look in my baby's eyes when they would look up at me and we're wrestling around, playing, tickling and all that. And they look up at me and just call me Daddy. Oh my goodness, my heart would move and I'm ready to give the whole kingdom over to them because there's just this joy of knowing that I have this love relationship with this one that I'm ready to sacrifice everything for. Knowing that me as an earthly father feels that way about the ones who call me Daddy, oh boy, that changes everything about how I view God the Father. So we have the spirit that cries Abba in the Hebrew language. When kids are listening to Hebrew all the time, they would say Abba, 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 Abba as one of their first words. It's an easy word to say. So when we call God Dad, Abba, it's an intimate thing. And here's what we need to really grow and learn. We looked at discipline last week, and that God does sometimes have to put down the hard hand of discipline in our lives, just like every dad, every father. If he's responsible and loves his kids enough, he won't let them stay the way that they are. And there were moments in all of my kids' lives. I'm a fun, joyful, playful dad. Our discipline structure in our house has looked like, kids, I really just want to have a really fun time with you right now. I want to go out and do the things we do when we're having fun. But right now, you're interfering with that because of the way you're treating one another, or the way you just talk to mom, or the way that you're giving us a hard time, hassle about just emptying the dishwasher. And the default setting for me as a dad is, let's go do something where we just enjoy one another. Well, I want to tell you that that's part of being made in the image of God. And it is every true dad's heart. I just want to really enjoy my kids, and I want my kids to enjoy me. And so I want to talk about God as Dad today. The Westminster Catechism is this thing put together in 1647. A group of theologians got together and they wanted to create like a discipleship series. Here are the things that we're going to make sure that new believers learn, and it's a question and answer format. The first question in the Westminster Catechism is, what is the chief end of man? Or what's the purpose of living? Why are humans here? And the answer to that question is, the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. Have you considered that the purpose of our walk with God isn't to obey Him, and it isn't just to please Him? It isn't just to be like servants to a master, slaves to a master, or even just to accomplish a purpose or reason for existing. All of those are part of our relationship with God, to be sure. But have you considered that really the main reason why we're here is just to really have a blast with God? To enjoy the God who created everything that we find enjoyable in life? Some of the best memories that most of us have of our fathers are the times we were playing with them. And maybe, again, if you didn't have a father who was like this, then I'm sad for that. And, in my house, my mom was more of the fun, playful one. My father was more of the stoic engineer kind of personality. So I'm just being general here with this. But in most families, the father is the playful, goofy one. The father's the one who's going to have 5 kids or however many kids you have on your back, rolling around in the yard and playing, games, jumping on the trampoline and, doing all those fun, goofy things like that, tickling and such. And that's typically what fathers provide in the house. That's why the stereotype is, if there are 5 kids in a family and somebody talks to the mom, how many kids you got? Well, I have 6 kids because dad's included in that. Why? Because he's always messing around. He's always just being fun and joyful. Again, I want to tell you that that's because we've been made in the image of God. And God is a fun, enjoyable person. Now, that was an image of God growing up in a stiff, kind of religious sort of institution. If you would have asked me to tell 10 things about what God is like, fun, enjoyable, joyful, would not have made that list. I had God down as being this stiff killjoy in the sky, and all he was there was to kill all of my fun, to end. I thought if I came to Christ, this is serious, if I came to Christ, that's the end of all my fun. I'm not going to be able to do all these things that I find enjoyable anymore. I'm going to go around looking like I've been sucking on lemons, and I'm just going to be this miserable, holy, pious kind of person. And man, I literally kept me away from God for a while. Then I met some fun Christians. I met some really enjoyable people. They were some of the funnest, I had a blast with them, and I realized I'm having fun with these guys, and I'm not getting drunk right now. I don't need any substances. I'm not doing anything that leaves me feeling ashamed of myself the day later. I'm actually just having good, clean fun. And it opened my eyes to the possibility that maybe God's not what I thought he was. I've since learned in 35 years of walking with him, God's the most fun person you could ever actually be with. Our Father in heaven is the most fun you'll ever have. The Christian life is anything but boring, and God is anything but a cosmic killjoy. We looked at how if you've seen Jesus, you've seen the Father, right? We looked at how Philip asked him the question at the Last Supper, show us the Father. Jesus like, you've been with me all this time. You know what the Father looks like. I and the Father are one. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. So look at Jesus for a minute. His first miracle, right? The Messiah, the Savior of the world, has come of age. He's been baptized in the Jordan River by John the Baptist, who said, behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. Everybody heard the voice of the God in heaven saying, this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. He went 40 days to fast and pray in the wilderness just to get ready and prepared for his public showing of who he was now, the Messiah. What's the first thing he does? He goes to a wedding of some family friends back near his hometown of Nazareth, a little village called Cana. And it turns out that the bride and groom, the host, had run out of wine, which is a huge embarrassment. So what's Jesus going to do? With a little bit of prodding from his mom, he's going to turn that water into wine. He's like, the celebration can't stop now, and I don't want this couple to be embarrassed. He turned water into wine. And by the way, this was toward the end of the wedding feast. This is when people were already drinking. Some of them maybe drinking too much. I'm not saying that Jesus is a fan of drunkenness. He is not at all. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But Jesus looked around and said, it's time for another round. And he made the water into wine. And the steward said, by the way, it was the best wine that they had the whole feast. That was Jesus's first miracle. First miracle, turning water into wine. He had a reputation, however he was in people's houses all the time, and I guarantee he was the life of the party, because always people were waiting to hear what's Jesus going to say next. And it wasn't just because he was a teacher with a stiff, mean, stoic face telling them the ways of holiness. He was actually fun to be around. They called him, the Pharisees did, they called him a drunkard and a glutton, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Jesus was not a drunkard, and he was not a glutton. Those are sins, and he was a perfect, sinless man. But he had a reputation of that. Why? Because he was hanging around, just having a really good time. I got to tell you, the Father in heaven, our dad, really loves to be around us. He gets a kick out of us. He enjoys it. Man, think of if you're a dad or a mom, just think of the times you're looking at that little one playing, and they're fun around that preschool 3, 4, 5-year-old stage, and the things they say, the quirky things they come out with. And I think if I, as a dad, look and I'm just enjoying them, having the world around them come alive to them. I mean, everything's exciting. You just sprinkle a hose on them and they just went to Disney World. You know, it's like that kind of level of joy. And I love that because I love watching my kids enjoy life. Dad's just like that. Our heavenly dad is just like that. Jesus would mess with his disciples. There's a really funny moment, if you can read it and see what he was doing here. When Jesus is in front of a crowd of 5,000 people, he just finished preaching. It's getting towards sundown, and his disciples come over to him and they say, "Hey, Jesus, the sun's going down, and there's nowhere for the people to get food around here. We should send them home." And Jesus kind of looks at his disciples, and I think he got a little smirk on his face. He goes, "Give them something to eat then." And they're like, "Well, there's not enough food. Where are we going to get food around here? We're out in the middle of the wilderness with that." And Jesus just smirking, saying, "Give them something to eat." Knowing full well he's about to feed 5,000 people with a miracle, and but he just wanted to mess around with his disciples. You got to see Jesus as a man, as a fun person, and as one. Why do you think people wanted to be around him? I mean, they weren't around him like people would be around a Pharisee would be because they're afraid of them. Because this fear of, you're the one showing me the holy ways of righteousness, and if I don't obey you and I don't follow you, then I've crossed God, and God's going to strike me. At some point, I'm going to receive the punishment from God that's due my name, due my behavior. And so the Pharisees and other teachers, they would have followers, but it was out of fear. It wasn't out of, or maybe out of respect, but it certainly wasn't because, man, I just love being around this guy. Jesus attracted crowds, and he kept disciples who were real people because he was just really enjoyable to be around. He was a real human being. Psalm 16, verse 11 says, "You have made known to me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy, and in your right hand there are pleasures forever." Think of that. This is David writing a psalm, and he's going, you know what you're like? You're the God, in your presence is the fullness of joy. Like, to get close to you is to get closer, to laugh out loud till your side hurts kind of joy. To feel so elated and so excited. I mean, think of the most excited moments of your life when like the things that happen to make you go, "Wah!" Really loud. I didn't want to yell in your ear there in the microphone, but when everything in you just shouts for joy. Think of those moments like that, and just imagine in God's presence, it's not a moment. It's the atmosphere all the time. He's always full of joy. And the closer you get to Dad, or Dad in heaven, I'm saying, the closer you get to Dad, the more full of joy you get, and the more fullness of joy you experience. I mean, why do you think the first place that Adam was put into was called Eden? God made the heavens and the earth in 6 days. He created everything. And then it says that he planted a garden eastward in Eden. So he planted a garden in a place called Eden, which means pleasure, paradise or pleasure. The word Eden means God planted Adam in the place of pleasure. The place where every moment of every day he had another opportunity to go, "Wow, oh, that was amazing," and to live his life that way. You know those moments, remember what it felt like to be a child when all day, every day was just a nonstop adventure. When, man, going into that little patch of trees in your backyard, you were in the Sherwood Forest and you're Robin Hood. I mean, that was my thing. And you're running around and playing and you're just elated all day long. I mean, you remember those days. Maybe as an adult, you, like I did, ruined a lot of that fun by being irresponsible with it and finding other ways to attain pleasure that brought consequences to them. But when we were kids and we enjoyed it, that's what Adam felt in that Garden of Eden. Every tree he could eat from, and all the fruit was amazing. Everything that he did every day. I mean, think of your favorite things to do when you're just outdoors having good, clean fun. Maybe you're into whitewater rafting. Maybe you're the one who likes to sit by a quiet brook and just listen to it bubble past you. Maybe you like to lay on your back and look up at clouds and see what you can find, what formations you can find in the clouds. Maybe you find joy in watching big thunderstorms come through and wondering if a tornado is coming through next. Maybe you like climbing mountains. Maybe you like laying in the field looking at mountains. All of those things that bring us pleasure, that bring joy to our heart, they were God's idea. The ocean, man, who doesn't like, well, maybe you don't, spending hours riding waves in the ocean, and then we figured out, hey, put a board under your feet and you could ride even bigger ones. I mean, all of those things were God's idea. Why? Because He created the earth just for our pleasure. And that's why Adam was planted in the Garden in Eden. That's what God is like. To know that in His presence is fullness of joy, at His right hand are pleasures forever. That's what Dad is like. He doesn't want to spend His entire time with us. His desire with us is not to spend the whole time we're together going over, hey, don't do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. That's not what life is like. Again, back to, me as a dad, I'm looking for those days when we just can plain old have fun and go and do something pleasurable together. And I can't stand the moments where it's ruined because of some kind of rebellion or some kind of, riot that happened or a temper tantrum or things like that. I mean, we love through those things and we never forsake our kids when they do that. But what a bummer it is, isn't it? That's how it is with us and Dad in heaven when we sin, when we do things that destroy us and hurt the people around us. It's that interruption to God's previously scheduled joyful day. And now God does have to be the father, the dad, who loves his kids too much to leave us the way we are. And so father's discipline, as we looked at Hebrews 11 or 12 last week, this week, what I want to share is that the foundation of God being able to correct us. The reason why it's okay when God has to come to us and say, I need to talk to you about something and we need to work on this issue in your life because you know that it's ruining your joy and you know that it's hurting the people around you. And I don't want you to keep experiencing life this way. I want you to experience fullness of joy. I want you to experience pleasure that doesn't leave you high and dry on the next day. I mean, isn't that what all sin's about? We're trying to fill our life with pleasures. We're trying to please our heart, please our body, please our mind and our soul in some way. And we find ways of pleasing ourselves, pleasuring ourselves that just really do destroy our life. We do it with how we treat sex. I mean, sexually right now, it's a big thing. It's always been a big thing. It's not new, by the way, with our culture. If it's in the Bible, it's at least 2,000, 3,000 years old, right? But the way that we go about sex, it's a beautiful, amazing thing in the context of a husband and wife who love each other and who may actually be producing children as they're engaged in that act. Outside of it, we're making soul ties. We're selling our body short. We're treating ourselves as if we're no more than just another mammal who doesn't have a soul and doesn't make connections. We're training ourselves in how to be superficial and how we connect with people, and we ruin sex by the way we sexualize everything, and we make things, we make everything sensual, and we make, women, for example, objects that appear in magazines are now on Instagram, social media, instead of honoring and loving it the way that God created it to be. I can testify, having experienced both worlds in that, there is nothing like the joy of a sexual relationship with somebody you love. We call it three-dimensional sex, where your body, soul, and spirit are involved. That's just one example. I mean, what we do, God created grapes. Jesus turned water into wine. It's a pleasurable experience. There's a reason why wine has always been a part of every culture, everywhere, but not for the sake of drunkenness. When we get drunk, we end up behaving in ways that later on we're embarrassed. I mean, I can remember the days of waking up in places I had no idea how I got there. I probably put my life at risk. When I got behind the wheel, I put other people's lives at risk just by being foolish. Instead of just treating it as an object of pleasure, I treated it as something that would now satisfy desires that really, in the end, only God could satisfy. You can name your poison. You can find anything that God created. There's a place where it belongs, and then there's a place where we take it and we only use it for our sensual pleasures, and then we take it into realms where it doesn't belong and it brings harm to our lives. What if I told you that the dad who created those things for our pleasure is able to satisfy all of our desires. Psalm 103 says he satisfies our desire for good so that our youth is renewed like the eagles. We become little kids again when we're with God because he satisfies the deepest desires of our heart that nothing physical in all of God's creation can satisfy all on their own, which is why the best thing about the Garden of Eden wasn't just that the trees and the mountains and all of whatever else was there for them to enjoy. It wasn't just all of that. It was that every day, in the cool of the day, as the sun was rising or setting, whenever that time of day might have been, they walked with God. They talked with God. They had this unbroken communion with God. Can you imagine their conversations as they're walking through the garden? You know, you can see it, and you should read Genesis chapters 1 and 2. You can read 3, that's where the fall happens. But 1 and 2, just try to fathom there's God walking with them in the cool of the day. And God is watching them like a father watches his kids grow up. There's an interesting phrase that's used in there. It says that God brought all the animals to Adam, 2 by 2. He brought them to Adam to see what he would name them. It says it just like that in the Hebrew and the translation in English, to see what he would name them. In other words, God didn't sit there and say, Adam, these are zebras. Adam, that's a hippopotamus. Adam was able, he had free will to name them, and God was interested to see what Adam would name them. Now, you do whatever you're going to want with God knowing all things from before and after all time. I don't care what you think about that. I'm just telling you what the Bible says. And it's like God was